Today, we'll be previewing the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season and all the changes that are coming. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. The 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season is going to feel very, very different. There are a lot of changes that are officially coming for 2022, and we're going to talk about all those changes and things that are changing for 2022. The most notable thing is that there is going to be a new generation of car that's going to be debuting here for the 2022 season. While packages have not been confirmed for 2022, it's very likely that we're going to see 670 horsepower, potentially a 4-inch spoiler as well for all races except a couple of tracks. That being Atlanta Motor Speedway for a potential new configuration that we'll get into, and Daytona and Talladega as well, where it's being rumored at the moment that most likely the horsepower could be 510 horsepower for those three specific races. But the next gen car is going to be debuting. It's basically getting rid of all the side force on the cars. There might be a little bit that is added on the cars just for stability and stuff. There's a rear diffuser on the back of the next gen car. There's side skirts and all that stuff. There's a lot of different changes coming to that. There's cooling systems, all that kind of stuff in the car. And there's also a fifth gear as well that is going to be a sequential shifter, which is also going to add a fifth gear to the next gen car as well. So that's the biggest change that is coming. The next gen cars had a lot of really, really interesting stuff, and it looks like finally we do have packages going to be for that. So that's probably the biggest change overall that is coming to the next gen car in 2022. The next thing we're going to talk about is a couple cosmetic changes and things that are coming. The next big notable thing is that this car is going to be a single lug nut. That's right. The next gen car is going to be a single lug nut car. Instead of having traditional 5 lug nuts on a pit stop that we've had really since the beginning of time in NASCAR, we're going to be going to a single lug nut because of the 18-inch wheels, which are basically aluminum, potential of them cracking. You don't want those issues happening. NASCAR moved from 5 lug nuts, and they decided to go to 1 lug nut. And think about this. Basically, NASCAR is modernizing at the same time as well. Every other major motorsport across the world uses 1 lug nut. Whether you think IMSA, F1, or IndyCar, or WEC and all that stuff, you see, of course, single lug nuts on the car. So NASCAR is basically getting modernized at the moment, and that's one change that we're seeing. Another big change that has been extremely controversial is number placements on the cars. No doubt, I think a lot of people have had their opinions because the number placement is changing for 2022. As instead of being its traditional center position, where it's been in the center position pretty much since the beginning of time as NASCAR, they have decided to go ahead and move the number forward for more sponsorship value. Some teams, that when it comes to their sponsorship, I think they've done a really, really good job, while other teams, in my opinion, haven't done such a great job. I've seen some of them, the Penske team's done a really, really good job amongst some other teams. Meanwhile, you've had some other organizations that haven't done as good as well. But the number placement, I think it will become better. It is growing on me just a little bit. I wasn't a big fan at first when they were revealing this. I feel like that's one thing I wish they could remain centered. But as time goes on, I think I will like it a little more. I have been liking it a lot more. And that's another major change that is coming for 2022. It's been arguably one of the most controversial things, but they're doing it because of sponsorship value. But at the same time, they're trying to get more sponsorship value. But I think that sponsors should be active and stuff. But at the same time, that is the big cosmetic changes that are coming. The next thing we're going to talk about is overall teams. First, let's talk about the new teams that are coming into the sport. The first team we're going to talk about is Petty GMS Racing. Petty GMS Motorsports. Now, the most important thing you know about Petty GMS Motorsports going next year is basically this team is combining for 2022. They will be a 2-car team. They will have charters from Rickrow Racing. It will be basically taking that, and also Richard Petty Motorsports. This is a combination between Richard Petty Motorsports and GMS Racing. GMS Racing and Petty are basically combining together for 2022, and they will have iconic numbers of the 42 and 43 cars for 2022. This team, I think, has a lot of potential. They will still be working in the RCR camp, and GMS will basically run the organization. Richard Petty will be the chairman of this organization in 2022, while Mike Beam will basically run the operation of the team in 2022 as well. And Joey Cohan will also be the competition director for this team as well in 2022. He was planning already when it was just GMS Racing. He was already planning to be the competition director for this team, but Petty GMS Racing is technically a new team. Another new team that we're going to see in 2022 is going to be Team Hedsberg. It was announced at the Shaw Roval weekend, the same weekend that was originally announced that GMS was going to be showing up. Team Hedsberg revealed that they'd be showing up on a part-time basis in 2022. We know for sure that they're potentially going to run all the road course races in 2022. There's also talk that they may run some short track races in 2022, as well as potentially running the Daytona 500 as well. So we may see them in a lot more races than originally thought, before eventually, if they start getting including sponsorship and funding, they may eventually go full time. There will be 2 drivers driving for this team. Larice Hasemans will drive this car for many, many races, and we'll see potentially Jacques Villeneuve run a few races as well. He's actually was testing the next-gen car not too long ago. So Team Hedsberg will be a new team that's showing up. Both teams really, really excited to see some new teams in 2022. Really, really exciting. While we're seeing some new teams, there are also, unfortunately, a couple teams that are leaving in 2022. Chip Ganassi Racing has sold their operations to Trackhouse Racing, the Cup Series operations, and they will not be returning to Cup in 2022. Many of the employees are going to be going either over to Trackhouse Racing. Some will also be going to 2311 Racing in 2022 as well to work with one driver that we'll talk about here in just a second. Chip Ganassi Racing has sold their Cup operation. They've sold their team basically for, I think, around $20 to $25 million. Numbers were not really disclosed in regards to how much Chip Ganassi Racing was sold for, but Chip Ganassi Racing sold for quite a bit. It was announced back, and this is really one of the most shocking announcements. Chip Ganassi Racing has been in the Cup Series since 2001, when they basically came in and when they helped Dodge get back into sport, which they also could potentially be returning it to NASCAR in the near future. But they helped Dodge become very, very well. They had great strategic drivers. They had drivers like Sterling Marlin and Kyle Larson and even Kurt Busch and Ross Chastain in their organizations, and Jamie McMurray as well. They've won Daytona 500s. They've won major events in their times and have gotten a lot of victories. The other team that unfortunately is also going to be shutting down is Starcom Racing. Starcom Racing, there have been rumors for a while they were basically going to be selling their charter to an organization. They are actually selling their charter to 2311 Racing in association with Spire Motorsports. Originally, that charter was going to go over to Spire Motorsports, but 2311 Racing has bought a second charter for $13.5 million. And Starcom Racing was considering potentially running part-time in 2022, but when they decided to go with the finances and the fact that charter teams get basically all the money and unchartered teams really don't get much money, they will not be returning in 2022. They were an organization that's been around since 2017. Actually, I think it was, 2017 they started racing, and they will not return in 2022 as well. So at this point, Starcom Racing is not returning to the Cup organizations in 2022, but it is what it is. Good luck to them. Hope maybe in the future Derek Cope reopens Starcom Racing, but it's not likely they will ever return to the Cup Series in 2022. But without that, and now into the next thing, we're going to talk about teams that are expanding in 2022 on a positive side of things. The first team is Trackhouse Racing. They will be a 2-car operation in 2022. They'll have Daniel Suarez and another driver here we'll just talk about here in a second. This team is expanding for 2022. They also have officially moved into the Chip Ganassi Racing organization for 2022 as well. They basically got into the Chip Ganassi Racing shop. Long-term, Trackhouse Racing will hopefully move maybe down to the national area. I don't know how long they'll be in the Chip Ganassi Racing shop, or if that national shop may not show up, but they're talking about potentially trying to move their shop eventually to national by 2023 to 2024. They really want to move in the national, have a shop with like a bar and stuff, and people can see what's going on in the shop down in Broadway. They'd like to have a shop right there. So Trackhouse Racing will be expanding to a 2-car operation in 2022. The next team we'll talk about is 2311 Racing. 2311 Racing will be expanding to a 2-car operation in 2022 after they acquire charter for their second car from Starcom Racing for 2022. There have been talk for a long time that was going to be the case. 2311 Racing will have Bubba Wallace also working with them in 2022 as well, but we'll talk about their driver here in just a few seconds. But 2311 Racing will be expanding in 2022. I think it makes a ton of sense. It also will help Toyota in a lot of their ways with their development, because long-term, they probably would like to be a 3 to 4-car operation. They've talked about it for many, many years, and 2311 Racing will also be expanding in 2022. Another team that's going to be expanding is Cargracing. Cargracing in 2021, they had a car that ran part-time. Next year, they're not only going to have one full-time car in 2022, but they're going to have 2 full-time cars in 2022. One with a superstar team, and their other car, which will be their guy that'll be going for the championship. Cargracing, I think, is a team of the future. They've been showing their stuff in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and in 2021, they picked up their first career NASCAR Cup Series victory with AJ Allmendinger at the Indianapolis Road Course. And I think this team has potential to win more races in 2022. But those are the teams that are expanding in 2022. The next team we're going to talk about is sad news, and it's the teams that are going to be downsizing in 2022. First team that is downsizing is Rickrow Racing. Rickrow Racing is planning to downsize from a 4-car team to a 2-car team in 2022, but there is a catch to that. Rickrow Racing is going to have a SHR line starting this season, and they also are going to be having association with Roush Yates engines as well. Drivers have not been announced for this team in 2022. However, I would think that they will most likely go with some of their drivers, and they're currently in the Rickrow Racing stable at the moment. But Rickrow Racing, I think, is making a really, really good decision to downsize. I think they can, especially since they can focus on both of their cars, I think their team will go from being a 35th place team most week to probably being a 25th to 20th place team in most weeks, which will be a major, major great improvement. Rickrow's a team I want to see do very, very well. I want to see any organization well. They're the first team that is downsizing. The other team, major team that is downsizing in 2022 is going to be JDD Racing. That will downsize from a 2-car operation to a 1-car operation to focus on their only charter car, which means that Ryan Preece is not going to be returning. The 37 car will not be returning in 2022. Meanwhile, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. will be returning in 2022 to this organization with JT Doherty Racing. And there have been rumors for a while that potentially they were going to move from Chevy to Toyota, but those rumors are greatly exaggerated, and they will continue being with Chevy in 2022 as well. JT Doherty Racing, though, I think is making overall a big decision right here. They are going just to 1 car, especially the charter car. I think it will help them. I think them having 2 cars really hurt their organization. I think when they had only 1 car, they actually performed better than they were with 2 cars. So I think it was a great decision for them to downsize to a 1-car operation, and those are the teams that are downsizing. And after the teams, we're going to talk about all the driver moves in the NASCAR Cup Series, because they're having a ton of silly season moves that have taken place. First, Brad Keselowski is going to be moving away from Team Penske, and he's going to be going to Roush Keselowski Racing. That's right. Brad Keselowski is going to be driving for his own organization in 2022. He has bought an ownership stake into Roush Racing, and he will be a co-owner of the organization as they change their name from Roush Racing to Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. I think that this is an excellent move for Brad Keselowski, and Brad Keselowski is making this for a couple reasons. Number one, there have been a lot of tensions between him and Joey Logano at Team Penske. Number two, he originally was supposed to test at the next-gen test at Texas Motor Speedway the day they revealed the next-gen car, but he basically got denied, and eventually he was replaced by Ryan Blaney at this test. And number three, his general manager that worked at Brad Keselowski Racing, I think Jeremy Wheelers or something, is working at Roush Keselowski right now at the moment, so that's why he decided to go over there. And of course, the next-gen car is a big reason. I think he's doing a really, really great move. He's the first driver that's making a big move for this team. The second driver change that's happening for 2022 is Kurt Busch will be moving away from Chip Ganassi Racing, and he'll be going into 2311 Racing in 2022, and he'll drive the number 45 car. Kurt Busch, I think, is also making a very, very strong move. I think Kurt Busch is a driver that's been extremely underrated in his NASCAR Cup Series career. I think he has 35 or 33 or 34 career NASCAR Cup Series victories, and every single season since 2014, he has picked up a victory. It doesn't matter what team he's ran for, whether it has been, of course, SHR, Chip Ganassi Racing, Furniture Row Racing, before they became really, really great, Phoenix Racing. Any team he's ran for, like Team Penske, he has been a championship caliber driver, and I think he potentially could be just like that in 2022. Plus, I think he's going to be a great asset to see, bringing a veteran presence to the organization. Also going to be someone that can coach Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace, having a guy like Kurt Busch be on a team is really, really great, because Bubba Wallace, I think, needed a mentor and some guidance from a driver, and I think Kurt Busch is really going to bring that in for this team in 2022. So Kurt Busch will be moving over to this team in 2022. I think he's a great asset for the team. Next big driver change is Ross Chastain will be moving into that second Trackhouse car, driving the number 1. Justin Marks really wanted Ross Chastain to drive for their team, and I think Ross Chastain is absolutely going to be an asset to this team in 2022. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but in 2021, Ross Chastain finished 20th in the NASCAR Cup Series standings, I think 20th or 21st in the NASCAR Cup Series standings, which is not too bad considering that 42 car in 2020. Oh boy, that car was not really, really good. So he definitely improved their organization. And I do think Ross Chastain will be a big asset to this team next year. Makes a ton of sense. Justin Marks really wanted him. I think Ross Chastain is an extremely talented driver. He'll be at the team not just in 2022, but for multiple years to come. I think this is a great move. The next driver change we're going to talk about is Austin Cindric, as Austin Cindric will be moving to the Penske 2 car in 2022. This does not surprise me. This does not shock me. Austin Cindric, of course, a 2020 NASCAR Xfinity Series champion. His dad, of course, is basically the president right now at Team Penske, at the IndyCar team. It also helps the Xfinity and Cup Series teams as well. And of course, that really, really helps right there. But Austin Cindric is a really extremely talented driver. And you think about how good he is, especially on road course tracks. I think he's going to be very, very fast on road courses. And we could see potentially one of the best rookie seasons we've seen out of any driver in the history of the NASCAR Cup Series. He's a guy that I think has a lot of potential. He was really fast this year on road courses, was arguably was going to have a chance to win at Road America before he had issues in that race. And I do think that Austin Cindric is going to be a big benefactor and an asset to this team in 2022. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do in 2022 as a full-time rookie. The next team we're going to talk about is the 16 for Cargracing, as this is going to be the all-star lineup. Noah Gragson is going to drive 14 races for this team. Meanwhile, AJ Allmendinger and Daniel Hemrick will split this car in 2022. Noah Gragson will also be attempting to qualify for Daytona 500 to qualify for in that race, and AJ and Daniel Hemrick will split the races. This is a really, really great combination of an organization. You're going to have 3 really great drivers. 3 of the final 4 drivers in the NASCAR Xfinity Series will be competing in this car together. These drivers have had differences in the past, but at the same time, you have 3 drivers that I think have a ton of potential to make this car really, really strong. I expect this team to be a very, very fast and a very, very competitive team throughout the 2022 season. I think they're going to do extremely well, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to see what this team can do in 2022. This will be the all-star team. The next team we're going to talk about is Wood Brothers, as Harrisonburg will be moving over to the Wood Brothers car in 2022, driving the number 21 car. He's taking over for Matt DiBenedetto in 2022. It's really unclear where Matt DiBenedetto is going to be going in 2022. But Harrisonburg will be going to Wood Brothers in 2022. He will be arguably the first, will be one of the 2 rookie people after first or second driver born after 2000 to race. He had a pretty decent year in Xfinity, not amazing, but he got, I believe, to the round of 8 in the NASCAR Xfinity Series Championship, but failed to win a race. But he did win 4 races with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2020, and Jeff Byrne apparently helped him get into the team. And he also has sponsorship with Dex Imaging that's been associated with him throughout his whole entire career, that also sponsors the team Penske. So it made a ton of sense for him to move into the team, considering the fact of that sponsorship. So he'll be a rookie in 2022. He did make 1 select start in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2021 at Talladega. So hopefully in 2022, he can do very, very well. He'll be going to that team. Next driver to talk about is Justin Haley, as Justin Haley will be driving the 31 for Cargracing in 2022. Justin Haley has a lot of Cup experience. He's, I think, ran 30 or 40, I think around 40 to 50 Cup Series starts already in his NASCAR Cup Series career. He won the 2019 Daytona race, albeit it was very, very controversial. He won that race in 2019. And he basically ran the full entire season in 2021. And he'll be going, I don't think he'll be eligible for the Rookie Year honors in 2022. But Justin Haley, I think, is ready for the big leagues. He's really proven himself in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He's won a lot of super speed races, and I think he's a driver that will surprise a lot of people in 2022. He'll be driving for Cargracing. The next driver we'll talk about is Todd Gillan, as Todd Gillan is going to be jumping all the way up from the Truck Series and will be jumping up to the Cup Series full-time in the number 38 for Front Row Motorsports. Now, a lot of people are really, really shocked about this move, but this move makes actually a lot more sense than people are giving it credit for. Number 1, Front Row Motorsports has had association with the Gillans for a very, very long time, and Todd Gillan has been driving for the Truck Series program for the last 2 seasons and has won a couple races with the team. He actually won 1 race in 2021 and actually made the playoffs in both seasons, but unfortunately got eliminated in the first round. And Todd Gillan has really, really improved as a driver. Do I think he maybe is getting rushed up to the Cup Series too quickly? Maybe. I think another year in Xfinity would have made a ton of sense. But the time is now to make a move. If you're going to make a move up to another series, I think the time is definitely now to do it. So Todd Gillan will be a rookie in the Cup Series in 2022. He'll be making his debut at the LA Clash and the Daytona 500 as well. Good luck to him in 2022. And the final major driver move that's happening for 2022 is Ty Dillon. He'll be going to Petty GMS Motorsports, driving the second one, the number 42 car next year. So Ty Dillon has made a couple select starts in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2021 for Gaunt Brothers Racing after losing his ride with Germain Racing. He also made select starts in the Xfinity Series for our Motorsports as well. So hopefully Ty Dillon can do really, really great next year, and he's the final driver we're going to talk about today. So now let's jump into the crew chief moves that are happening for 2022. The first move that's happening is Phil Surgeon, as Phil Surgeon is going to be crew chiefing for Ross Chastain at Trackhouse in 2022. Phil Surgeon has been crew chiefing, was the crew chief for him at Chip Ganassi Racing in 2021, and actually did all right as a crew chief. So hopefully Phil Surgeon can come to this team next year in 2022 and really can help Ross Chastain become a much more solid candidate in 2022. He's the first crew chief that we talked about. The second crew chief is Matt McCall, as Matt McCall will be moving away from Chip Ganassi Racing, and he'll be going to crew chief for Brad Keselowski at RFK Racing in 2022. Matt McCall did an excellent job with Kurt Busch and really became a solid crew chief working with Kurt Busch. And I do think that Matt McCall in 2022, working Brad Keselowski, I think that this combination and pairing, I think is going to work very, very well together. So I'm very excited to see what Matt McCall and Brad Keselowski can do next year. I think it's a great move. The next crew chief we're going to talk about is Jonathan Hassler. As Jonathan Hassler will be moving away from Wood Brothers Racing as a crew chief, and he'll be moving to the number 12 for Team Penske in 2022. Jonathan Hassler really helped Matt Benedetto stay in contention, because I think Matt Benedetto was struggling with Greg Irwin. I think when they decided to move Jonathan Hassler to be the crew chief for Matt Benedetto, it really helped him in 2021. And I think that this is going to be a really big benefactor for Ryan Blaney. With Todd Gordon leaving the team to go into retirement after being a crew chief for many, many years, this is a really great move in my opinion. Jonathan Hassler, I think, will be a great asset to Team Penske in 2022. The next crew chief move we're going to talk about is Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson is going to officially moving up to the Cup Series after being a crew chief in the NASCAR Xfinity Series in the 22 for Team Penske. He's going to be going to Wood Brothers to crew chief for Harrisonburg. Harrisonburg just got the bag. Brian Wilson has done an extremely great job with the Team Penske organization for Xfinity. He's been crew chief for, I think, for the last 6 or 7 years, and he's done an excellent job with this organization. So I thought this was the perfect time for him to move up. I think he's done a really, really great job, and I think that Harrisonburg actually potentially could do better in 2022. So I think Brian Wilson is an excellent crew chief, and I think he'll do really, really great to help him out in 2022. The next crew chief we're going to talk about is Chip Donnelly. As Chip Donnelly is going to be crew chief for Ty Dillon at Petty GMS Racing in 2022. Now, something very, very interesting is Chip Donnelly was basically the engineer for the 42 for Chip Ganassi Racing since around 2013 to 2014. So he was an engineer for Juan Montoya, Kyle Larson, Matt Kenseth, and Ross Chastain, and now will basically be going up to the crew chief side of things. I don't think he's ever crew chief for, so we really don't know how good he's going to be. However, I think that engineer work's going to come in, and I think he's going to do really, really great to help this team out. So he'll be going into work as a crew chief next year. He'll be making his debut as a crew chief. Good luck to him next year. The next crew chief we're going to talk about is Dave Ellens. As Dave Ellens is moving up from the Xfinity Series at Junior Motorsports, and he'll be going up to crew chief for Petty GMS Racing number 43 to be a crew chief for Eric Jones in 2022. I think Dave Ellens is a very, very solid crew chief. He's won championships in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, of course, with a couple drivers. He's won a championship with William Byron. He's won a championship, of course, with Tyler Reddick. And has also, I think, won a championship, not Chase Elliott, but he's won a couple championships as well. And on top of that, he's won a lot of races with Noah Gragson as well. And I think that Eric Jones just got the bag for 2022. I think that he is a very excellent crew chief, very solid crew chief, and I'm excited to see what he can do in 2022. And the final crew chief we're talking about is Billy Scott. As Billy Scott is going to be going to 2311 Racing to crew chief for Kurt Busch in 2022. Billy Scott absolutely, he's only had one win in 218 starts, but think about who he won that race with. You guessed it, Kurt Busch. He won that race with Kurt Busch in 2018 at Bristol when SHR was on their A game. And I think that Billy Scott is going to be an excellent asset to this team for 2022. I think he's a lot better crew chief than I think a lot of people are giving him credit for. So I think he's going to do very excellent to help out Kurt Busch. I think he'll do really, really great. He was also working with RCR, I think, in the development side of things. So hopefully Billy Scott can do great, and he'll work with Kurt Busch in 2022. And now let's talk about the major spotter moves that are happening for 2022. First one, TJ Majors. TJ Majors is going to be going over to work with Brad Keselowski once again. He later in the year, starting around the Michigan weekend, he started working with Brad Keselowski at Team Penske, and a lot of people were speculating that TJ Majors was going to make the move to work with Brad Keselowski in 2022, and our assumptions were correct. He'll be working to be the spotter with Brad Keselowski in 2022. Would not shock me if this helps Brad Keselowski, especially on super speedways, because TJ Majors is an excellent spotter for super speedway races. So TJ Majors, I think, is going to be a big asset at RFK Racing, and I think he'll do really, really great next year. The next spotter we'll talk about is Brandon Lyons, as Brandon Lyons is going to become the spotter for William Byron Hendrick Motorsports in 2022. What has happened here is that basically moving Ryan Preece, the spotter from last year, they're moving him over to work with William Byron in 2022. And I believe that Brandon Lyons is a pretty decent spotter as a whole. I think that he will be a pretty big asset to William Byron. So I know that Ryan Preece wasn't really, really great, but I think that Brandon Lyons will really, really help William Byron out, and I think he'll do great next year. He's a second spotter. The third spotter change that's happening is Jason Jarrett, as Jason Jarrett is going to be moving over to 2311 Racing to be the spotter for Kurt Busch at the number 45 team. Little do we also know, he'll also be spotting for Josh Berry in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at the 8 and Tate Fulgham in the Truck Series in the number 30 car. Jason Jarrett has done some spotting gigs in the past. He also was a former driver, but has not raced in quite a few years. He also is the son of Dale Jarrett, so Dale Jarrett's probably going to have some association with him as well. Probably also be rooting for him just because Jason is spotting. But Jason Jarrett, I'm really intrigued to see what he'll do as a spotter. I'm not sure how much he has spotted in the past, but he will be a spotter for Kurt Busch next year. The next spotter we'll talk about is Tab Boyd, as Tab Boyd is going to be moving away from the 24 car, and he'll be going over to work with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at JDD Racing in 2022. Tab Boyd, very excellent spotter. I think that this is going to work major, major wonders for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a driver that I think has gotten better over the last couple of years. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for just because he's wrecked a lot. But I think Tab Boyd will be the person that will help him become a very, very solid driver next year. So I'm very excited to see what he can do next year. Tab Boyd will be working with him next season. And the final spotter we're going to talk about is Brett Griffin. As Brett Griffin is getting back into the game of spotting on a full-time basis, he'll be spotting for Justin Haley in 2022 in the Cup Series, along with spotting for Daniel Heinrich in the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Cargracing in 2022. Brett Griffin, excellent spotter. I know a lot of people don't like his Door Bumper Career podcast show, but I think he's a very excellent and a very, very great spotter. So I think he's going to do really, really excellent to help out Justin Haley. I think he's going to be a great mentor. He's going to do a great job being on the radio, and I think this is a massive, massive pickup for Cargracing for 2022 to have Brett Griffin in the box. They've actually had Brett Griffin they do some spotting for Cargracing earlier this year, so it's great to see that he's coming back on a full-time basis to spot for Justin Haley. And the final thing we're going to talk about is the new tracks that are coming for 2022. And there's only two, well, technically there's three new tracks because of the new configuration as well. First track, Los Angeles Coliseum. NASCAR is going to be going to the LA Coliseum for the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum on February 6th, which is technically 48 days from today. This is really, really great. I know a lot of people thought it's very, very controversial, but it'll be starting out on a short track on the West Coast in the Los Angeles market. And it's been reported recently that 60% of people going to this race will be going to their first ever NASCAR Cup Series race, and they're also expected to advertise this race as well, which means that I think we're going to see a lot more people show up than I think a lot of people realize. So I'm very excited to see that we're going to be going to the LA Coliseum to kick off the season. The next track we'll talk about is Worldwide Technology Raceway. After much begging and many people wanting this track to be on the schedule, Worldwide Technology Raceway is officially joining the NASCAR Cup Series schedule for the first time in 2022. They have a 3-year deal with the track, so they'll be on the schedule from 2023, 2022, 2023, and 2024. I also will be going out to Worldwide Technology Raceway myself, so hope to see y'all there on June the 5th. Really awesome. St. Louis market, a lot of fans know this, and the track is selling seats. As a matter of fact, the Truck Series race, they've opened up the side grandstands because so many people are going to this event. I'll be going to my first, like I said, my first ever Cup Series race at this event. Great for the St. Louis area. On top of that, right after the first Cup Series race takes place, they're planning to have $40 million renovations to the track for infield and hospitality, and also to work on the electric compound at the track. They've had issues with electrics and stuff at the racetrack where the power has gone up. They're going to be fixing up the power grid. So that's going to be a big change that's coming, and that's Worldwide Technology Raceway. And finally, while this is not a new track, we're going to talk about the Atlanta reconfiguration. Atlanta is going to be changing from the usual track they've had, and it's basically going to become a mini super speedway, as it's basically going to have 28 degrees of banking, which is basically going to be where only 2 or 3 degrees less than Daytona. which is why they're likely going to go with the 510 horsepower package instead of the 670 horsepower package that we have seen. So that is Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I'm not sure how the race is going to go, but they're going to have the lower horsepower. I don't expect it to be what NASCAR think it's going to be, but they're going to have the lower horsepower most likely for that. And that's all the major changes that are coming to the NASCAR Cup Series schedule in 2022. I am super excited for next year. There's so many good things going into next year that I'm very, very excited for. All the new changes that are coming. And also, I think a really, really awesome schedule. There's a lot of things that schedule's absolutely much different next year. But I think 2022 is going to be a hell of a good season. And I'm really excited for 2022. So, anyway, that is here today's NASCAR preview. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support our page as well. Let's go over that and comment your thoughts on today's video. What are your expectations for 2022? Are you excited for 2022 or not? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.